How many stories do you have? Have you ever thought how many others have similar stories to you? Welcome to Merging Lanes Podcast, a fan-based podcast where I take your story and find others similar online. If you have a story that you'd like to submit, email it to jukeboxginger88@gmail.com. What's going on, everybody? I'm your host, Jukebox Ginger. We're back with another episode of Merging Lanes. Ponds, lakes, ocean, water that you can't see in. I feel like that's a pretty common fear. Like for me, I'll swim in lakes and I'll swim in ponds. I kind of swam in the ocean, but not much. But there's something about swimming in water that you can't see in that has this mystery to it, and also it has this fear aspect because you don't know what's in there. So for today's episode, I found 5 stories related to experiences people have had in those environments. I've never personally experienced anything creepy in those waters, but that feeling in the back of your head when you're swimming in them or when you're about to get in them, I feel like it might not be you, but there's lots of people out there that are constantly like, something's gonna come up and grab my leg. Am I gonna swim into something that's underneath the water and get tangled up and get pulled under and drown? You know, you never know. You really don't. So I found 5 stories, and we're gonna get right into these today. And this first one is called Wrapped in Fishing Line. I'm not a diver, but when I was surfing New Zealand's West Coast beach, I felt something wrap around my leg. I looked down and it was fishing line, so I tried to pull it up. Then the line got heavy. I assumed it was a fish, but as I pulled the line closer, it got really heavy and I began to sink. So I hopped on my board and paddled closer to shore. I slid off my board and was in chest deep water when my friend came over because he noticed something was wrong. We both pulled the fishing line in and saw a large silhouette in the water. So he dragged it to the surface and it was a dead body. Someone rock fishing fell off the rocks last week and was missing. There was a hook stabbed into his neck and fishing line wrapped around his face and dug into his skin. We brought the dude's body to shore and called in the lifeguards. Then we both threw up due to the lack of eyes. I was reading this and I thought about there being wrapped in fishing line. I like to fish, I do, and I've caught fishing line, and I've caught fishing line with fish still on them. I've hooked something and I was like, okay, this ain't a fish. You know, I've reeled in some pretty big snapping turtles, freaking logs in the bottom of the water, and I've had that feeling of, what am I about to see here? But from this dude or woman's aspect, that would be terrifying. Not getting tangled in the line, I think I would be fine with that. The initial, I think, getting caught would probably creep me out, like, until I realized it was a fishing line. People snag all the time, so the fact that he was like, oh, it was really heavy, initially I was like, oh, that's not that bad. It's probably just a log or something. But when you pull in a line that you got tangled in and there's a dead body attached to it, I don't care who you are, you're either gonna get creeped the fuck out or you're just an emotionless person, I guess. I don't know. I mean, if you don't react to that, you might want to go get checked out. You know what I'm saying? That's creepy. That is really creepy to me. It said that he was rock fishing. I don't even know what the hell rock fishing is. Like, if anybody that's watching this finds out what rock fishing is, please tell me, because I have no clue. I've never heard of rock fishing. But that in itself was creepy. All right, let's get on to this next one, guys. This one's called Pitch Black. I'm a commercial diver, and I was once on a job cleaning a potable water reservoir. I'd been in other reservoirs before, but this was by far the biggest, at 40 by 80 meters. To get in, you had to open a hatch in the ground. The whole reservoir was underground and climbed down a ladder. The hatch was in a corner, so when you were in the far corner of the reservoir, it was completely pitch black, and you just had to hope your light didn't go out. I was about halfway through a 3-hour dive when the batteries in my torch started going flat. This person is obviously not in America because we call them flashlights. You call them torch, but he's referring to a flashlight. I watched the beam get narrowed and dimmer until it cut out completely. It's not a huge problem if you lose light, as you can always follow the umbilical back to the hatch. See, the way this guy's talking is obviously he was attached to some sort of rope, and he's calling that the umbilical. Just as I started walking back, some obnoxiously loud banging started somewhere in the reservoir. I was the only diver in there, so it both confused and scared the shit out of me. Needless to say, I ran back to the hatch as fast as I could. I ended up getting my torch changed out and doing another hour in the water, but I didn't hear the noise again. I still have no idea what it was, but the combination of my torch going out and loud banging gave me a hell of a fright. Yeah, and you went back. Why? I mean, whatever, it's your job, I guess. I feel like the fear of darkness is a whole nother aspect that we could dive down. I've experienced it in a mine shaft before, when we went down to tour an old one, and it like weighs on you. It's like it's an entity almost, like it's a physical object that's weighing down on you when it's pitch black. That adds this element of fear. This guy's wading in water, not even wading, he's swimming in water on his own underground in this massive reservoir. That I don't know that I could do it, man. I mean, at any aspect though, I mean, just that the loud knocking in a pitch black reservoir, the echoing of it, the fact that it's pitch black, all those coming into play with your torch going out, that is something, man. That is crazy to think about. I mean, if you were telling someone that story, like the person putting it on here, that is something that's, I feel like the person listening would probably question how real the story is. So it's creepy that this happened to you. I mean, that's really scary, and it adds that fact of it doesn't even need to be the dark, gloomy water, because you can't see shit down there. It can be crystal clear and still be terrifying. Let's get on to this next one. This one's called Sunken Ship. An old World War II ammunition ship off the south coast of England was full of brass-topped shells. Most had been taken by divers over the years, and it was now very rare to see them. Apart from a pile in one corner of the ship, this pile of shiny brass metals was miraculously untouched and remarkably clean after spending years underwater, and you only found out why if you swam near them. Out of the murky darkness, the largest eel I have ever seen snakes forward. Without exaggeration, this thing had a head the size of a horse's head, full of jagged teeth. I could not see the body as it looped into the dark and deeper into the ship. No one got near those shells. Turns out for years, this thing had been guarding the shiny brass shells, slithering over them and making them shine. We found out at the bar later that he was famous in the area, and many people went to the wreck just to see him. No idea why this giant creature was guarding them like a dragon and its horde, but some said eels are like magpies and like shiny things. I don't even know what the hell a magpie is. Is it a bird or a type of sea animal? I mean, I've heard magpie, but I don't even know what the hell that is. Either way, this just confirms what I said in the beginning about you don't know what's in the water. Like, yeah, there's eels in the ocean. Yeah, we know that. How big? Well, this one had the size of a horse's head, which means it could have swallowed your ass. Plus the jagged teeth, tore you to shreds. Physically seeing something like that would make me not want to get in the water anymore. You know, I mean, that's I live in the Midwest. You know, it's for me. everyday life is not the ocean. There's not one around here. There's lakes and ponds, but even those themselves are terrifying. You're swimming in an ocean where you know there's creatures that you don't know exist, or that you don't know what's gonna be seen down there. That's more terrifying than the lakes. But then you have your lures like, Loch Ness Monster and some of these other ones. Like, your small towns have their own. Bear Lake, Utah has their own story of their own monsters. It's just those kind of stories that add confirmation, and when multiple people, like he said, multiple, I say he, whatever they are, said multiple people have seen this. It's even got like its own name, and like people acknowledge that this thing's there, and they're just like respectfully not getting too close to this guy, let him be. That's crazy, man. I mean, that's an experience that some people probably have an adrenaline rush for them, but I couldn't do it, man. And I don't even want to say that water is like necessarily like my number one fear, because I'll swim in lakes and ponds, but I would never let my guard down for that kind of stuff, and if I was swimming in the ocean, I'd probably be close to shore. I don't know that I would swim down to a shipwreck, whether with diving gear or not, because of this right here. All right, let's get on to this next one. This one's called Shark Snack. I ended up working on an oil rig. One beautiful morning, there were sharks going under the main platform like always, but there were 2 dead sharks. Next morning, 3 dead new sharks. Then 4 the next day. Then a steady 4 or 5 a day for about a week or 2. The dead sharks would float up under the see-through deck that looked much like a metal colander. Crew would have to punch them down with a large pole so that the current could grab them and take them away. What made it really weird was they looked like they had heart attacks or died in their sleep. No marks or bites or anything. The guys on the rig had all kinds of theories. Then one morning, while in a room that was completely submerged and had a beautiful view, we sat in a meeting. Everyone got to see the reason these sharks were dying, like viewing it on a movie screen. This octopus had made itself a home between the base and the deck. A shark was swimming by in a cruising fashion, and we see these tentacles grab it right in front of the glass and snap it like it was a glow stick. Holy shit. The marine biologist smiled and said, "Octopus is literally doing that to entertain themselves, like because he can." The marine biologist lowered a dive camera, and this octopus was huge. Yeah, along with that eel, that makes me cringe, man. This story makes me cringe. Like, seriously, it's that you got sharks that people already fear dying of fear from something else, and before acknowledging what it is doing it, you're stuck on this oil rig in the middle of nowhere. Well, you know where you are, but you know what I'm saying. There's no escape. If you were to fall into that water, you would have been this octopus, plaything for about a split second. And witnessing that, it reminds me of the movie The Meg, where the girl's standing in front of the glass and it comes right up to the glass. Except this time you're just witnessing these tentacles flash across the screen and grab this shark and just pop it in half. Man, that's crazy. That's absolutely terrifying, and would make me question my career choice. Just saying. I'm just saying. I'm sure I'm not the only one who feels that way. Next up, this one's called Boat Lift. I was sailing a small sunfish around an island near Florida in shallow water. As I cruised along, suddenly a large section of water directly in front of my bow exploded with a large splash. Immediately afterwards, my boat rammed into something under the surface and came to a complete stop. That's creepy. My first thought was I've hit a reef, but suddenly the entire boat was lifted up and spun around 90 degrees, almost dumping me into the water. Then there was another big splash, and I saw something zoom away, leaving a wake behind it. I've seen that fishing. I've seen things just take off, and you don't see them, but you see the surface of the water kind of V-shape and span out. That's pretty creepy. I was left freaked out and shaking. Then I thought to myself, I must have hit a big dolphin or something. Maybe it was a manatee. Lots of dolphins around here. So I finished my sail and went home. When I got to the beach, I pulled up the centerboard and found a real surprise. A 2-inch chunk had been bitten out of the wood. You could clearly see the marks of 3 large teeth. I'm very happy that I didn't fall out of the boat that day. Yeah, I bet you are. I'm happy for you, man. Whatever grabbed your boat clearly had intentions of eating it, which means had you fallen in that water, you wouldn't have came out of the water. Most likely. We don't know. You could be a badass. You could have fought it, punched it in the face, lost a foot or leg, whatever. But more reason to question what you're swimming in, people. It's a creepy experience. So for those of you who do have a fear for water, hopefully I just kind of added a little bit to it. Here on Merging Lanes, the idea is to grab stories from different viewers, from different people all over the world that have similarities and almost intertwine. And with this one today, that creepy, murky water that people swim and boat in, you should probably question. You should probably question what you're doing before you get in it. There's a lot more than just hurricanes and heavy storms that could kill you, or nasty waves. There's living things in water that can kill people and do. And that in itself is terrifying. And we know more about space than we do about our own ocean. I mean, think about that. How hard would it be for something that's down there deep enough in the abyss where we don't even have material strong enough to go down there without capsizing? If there's a living organism down there, that's one strong motherfucker. Pardon my French, but you guys know me. I like to cuss a little bit. If that happened, if there was a tsunami or an earthquake and it washed up something from down deep, yeah, it would probably die eventually because it just can't survive on our surface. But it doesn't mean that it wouldn't take time. I mean, this thing could do some serious damage. And we're talking about in these stories, we're talking about things that do exist and that we do know exist. But what about what we don't know? That's what gets me. What I don't know is underneath there is what gets me. Thank you guys for tuning in for another episode of Merging Lanes. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I know I did, and I'll be back. I'd like to get back into like a weekly show. It just kind of depends on my time. I've got so many shows to do. I've got a lot of other things. I've got a life outside of podcasting, as much as I enjoy doing these. But I appreciate all of you guys that do tune in and watch these or listen to them. If you're listening on Spotify while you're driving to work, thank you so much. Check out JG's Lounge on all platforms. We got tons of content for you guys to view, and we appreciate everything that you guys do to help support us. Until next time, we'll see you guys around.